Fugue has a new intro, so y'all better watch out. My name is Harrison Cross, and I am looking over 0.4.5, and I'm thinking about to finish up, so I'm just going to go through some of the things on that. So here we have 0.4.5, and I'm not exactly sure how much has changed, but there's definitely been a lot that has changed, and I'm just going to go over some of the things that I'm seeing here, and we can talk about that. So there was a big push for me to do the config and to do a get config kind of thing, and I made sure that that happened and that it was rounded out pretty well. There were some issues around this root repository or root view. Basically not providing what I wanted it to, so I'm just building that out a little bit more. I messed around a little bit with this profile, so this profile will actually work. It'll actually reproduce this over here, and I'll be putting something in place later on that will actually read this PS1 and then set your terminal accordingly. Import map pushed on that a lot more, so now you can just do import chalk from chalk, and it'll automatically put in this https cdn skypack.dev/chalk. And what is the it that I'm referring to? There is a build script that I have for the service worker, and if you're running Node by itself, or you're running a script through Node, that will actually be transpiled, and you'll be able to convert those as they're ran. So basically, like, running something through Node will automatically just transpile it for you, and I'll be doing more to iterate on that in the future. But in general, the big push with this release was trying to get preview and Node working properly, and I'm just going to walk through how I might be able to demonstrate that. So we'll first list out all the repos that are cloned using a get list. That gives me cross HJ Fugue plugins and Fugue beta that have been cloned. I'm going to go into Fugue beta by doing get open, and since it's the second one, number 2, I'll put the 2 there. Before, whenever you loaded, there would be a message that came up that said, please refresh. Now that's a thing of the past. So what we see is that the second repo that was there, Fugue beta, has actually been loaded, and this is the tree for it over here. I know that if I run node, and I think it's terminal /.example.js, not jks, js. So if you look over here, terminal, and then there's an example file here. So this will be ran. I did a little bit of messing around with when I did the rewrite scripts. Worker rewrite script is what I call them. I did a little bit of messing around to try to get the asynchronous context kind of worked out. So this works fine in the case where you're doing a node --watch terminal.example.js, because those scripts never have to end. That worker never has to end. And the concept of, is the worker done with something, is something that maybe Node can take for granted, but this fake Node here that's just a wrapper around worker doesn't really know when something ends. So essentially, I just rewrite the script for you, and everywhere I see a wait, then I basically just push that to an array, and then I also have some code that I put down at the bottom that says when this array is done, like finished, all the promises in this array are finished, then you can go ahead and exit. And that works really well whenever, or works pretty dang well whenever I say node terminal /.example.js, and we have some asynchronous things that happen. Basically, we get there's an example of Lodash being tested. We get the start that happens. 1, 2, and 3 all fire off as asynchronous events, and as they end, they are basically console logging saying I'm done. And then there's an overall await that pretty much waits until the done. Now I think the thing that really is waiting is this last await right here. But the code that I put in place actually works, so maybe I'll dig into it a little bit more later. So that's one of the things. Just to remind myself what is left, I'm going to clone crosshj / fiug blog. I have that little animation there. I don't know if that was there before, but I should be able to do get open 3 because that should have been the first one, just to illustrate that. Get list, we see that fiug blog is the third one there. And then now that I'm here, I can control P, command P, and I can look for what it is I'm looking for. I'm looking for 0.4.5. There's 0.4.5. Here are my notes for that. I have not figured out a way to verify this final task here for preview. I'm not seeing anything that causes a problem or seems to be a problem. So I'll probably just say, okay, this is done. I did not mention that whenever preview, if there's already a markdown, for instance, selected, and I do preview, previously this would tell me, hey, you need to select something, but I already have something selected that has a preview for it. So it should automatically just pop up. And I'll just remind you, as before, down here near my head, if you hit Control when you're in the preview, then quit button will pop up. You have to make sure that you're clicking on the preview button, and then hit Control or Command, and that will bring up the quit button. Then you can quit. And in the future, maybe I'm going to take over this bar down here so that I can get quit working better. It's a little bit, I think, weird. I would prefer it just to be Control C, like if anything else you would run in the terminal. And the reason why I went with Control as a shortcut is because if I'm trying to Control C something, I'm going to hit Control so that quit will show up. So that's basically my thinking around that, and that's reasonably old at this point, but just as a reminder, that's how you go in and out of preview. And the new thing about preview, besides maybe some improved reliability, is that the preview, when the current doc matches a matcher, like some kind of template that's already in place, then we're just going to show it after I execute the preview command. Like I said previously, I rewrote the worker with the service worker. So every time the service worker gets a request that looks like it should be rewritten, it'll go ahead and rewrite that. It does that using Babel, and then that helps out the whole concept of running something as if it were Node when it's actually just in a worker. Now, there's a lot more that I have to do to fully flesh out Node, but that right there helps me a lot. It gets it so it's a lot more workable. As you see before, we have the you can run the Node terminal example, and it does pretty much what I would expect from Node. There's some extra stuff that I went into. Switching the service without requiring a refresh, I mentioned that earlier. Removing open in preview from the tree. I used to have this thing, and when you right clicked on this, it would say open in a preview. That works really well back whenever I had preview as a command appear for a terminal, but it's no longer there. So I'm going to come back to that later. I mentioned the root being fleshed out a little bit more. There was basically like a refactor. I made it so that the files actually appear like they're files before they get built into the service worker. And there's also a settings JSON. I'll show that here in a little bit whenever I back out of this right here. I mentioned before that there was a bug where when you click on a document, it just loads a blank. A lot of weird issues around that placeholder thing that I talked about a video or two ago. I've fixed those, I think, for the most part. I mentioned the terminal loading spinner. That was that cool little loading something, and then it turns it to done. That was something I've wanted kind of for a while, something that gives feedback to the user saying that, hey, something's happening here. And an issue with git config not updating editor state and currently open git config, etc. So I think essentially, like, whenever I did one of those commands, this right here, git config local username John Doe, I don't know whether or not I'm going to do it. I don't know whether or not this is actually going to create yeah, it did. So we see over here, whenever I click on that, there's get and there's config, and it should have done what I expect it to do. Yep, user name equals John Doe. That's what we told it to do over here. And previously it wasn't doing that. I'm going to go back to 4.5, finish looking at the rest of this. So issue with get config, working on that. Shorten the git commit URLs. There used to have the full entire hash that that GitHub would send back to me. I realized that you can shorten that down to like 9 or 6 or something like that, like the first 6 of the hash, and then GitHub will still load it, and that's good because these URLs are really long, and I don't have a way really of making them shorter for the time being. I'm just going to list out the whole entire one, and I really don't want the URLs to go away because that's useful sometimes with debugging. It's just text, deal with it. But I shortened it down a little bit, and then I made an intro for release videos. I'm not sure that the intro that I just showed with this video was the one that I made. I don't know. I'll probably make 1 million release videos, and I don't care. It's just fun, and I think I don't see anybody else doing what I'm doing. I'm going to do it the way I do it, and I think that's a pretty good mark to leave off on. I think I'm going to go to the outro, which is the same as the intro.
Yeah.